So I talk a lot about owning your sacred rage and learning how to move through rage processing in my content. And something I think that is really important to name is that it can be really hard at first for you to have access to your rage or to your anger or your boundaries if you grew up in an environment where you constantly were told to stop crying or that you couldn't have feelings. Nobody was ever there to hold space for you to be in your experience. And so sometimes we can be stuck on off with our necessary fight response, meaning that we may miss when somebody crosses our boundaries, or maybe it happens. And what we do instead is internally go into incessant thought loops without being able to stand our ground or say something to someone. Alternatively, it could be stuck on when our first impulse is to be very reactive and lash out whenever anybody even slightly may cross our boundaries. And then that results in a shame spiral afterwards, because then it feels like we're too much and we caused a scene and it's really embarrassing. And this could be a vicious cycle in your relationships that causes a lot of self-shame. And so just to give you a little bit of a background, I've had a long journey with learning how to own my healthy aggression. And, I was bulimic for 10 years of my life. And my whole personality was like this perfect good girl, likable, charismatic. I was just like the perfect girl to be able to survive around my parents, because there was no room for me to have my healthy boundaries, opinions. There was no place for anger to be an okay emotion for me to express. And I also witnessed a lot of screaming and violent behavior. And so I associated anger with being bad and with being hurtful towards others. So I never wanted to own that kind of energy. And the result of that was me inflicting it on myself, which I didn't know at the time. That's what my bulimia was doing, was me turning my rage against myself and my own body. And then my purge sessions was the only way my young self knew how to have any form of catharsis in order to feel my feelings. So that addictive binge purge cycle for me was a weird way of my young self even figuring out how to start regulating her nervous system out of just being in freeze all the time. So I spend a lot of time reframing the term anger or rage for people, because it's an emotion that I feel like is very societally misunderstood, because it's associated with violence and pain and hurting other people. But I like to talk about rage or anger simply as the life force energy in you that keeps you alive, actually. So if you think about being out in the wild and maybe there's a tiger chasing you, anger is the life force energy that starts to rev up the adrenaline and cortisol in your body so that you then have the excess energy to fight back or run away. It's the energy in you that alerts your body to your boundaries being crossed, or it's the energy that shows you that you really care about something. And so if you start to think about anger as simply an energy in your body that has a purpose for your survival to keep you alive, then when you learn how to digest and move your anger and fully own it and not be ashamed of it in healthy ways that don't harm other people, then you're actually cultivating the energy that leads to more of your aliveness rather than being more shut down or numb and trying to suppress it. Peter Levine talks about how it's the amount of energy that would rev up in the system for a mother to save her child if they were stuck underneath a car. So that's like an intense amount of energy. And so if you can imagine, if we're societally taught to just suppress it all the time and keep it under wraps, then that's like two very strong counteracting forces of energy in the body that, when held long enough, manifest in all kinds of things like illnesses, autoimmune disease, even cancer over time. And so that's just one example of how our emotions are intricately tied to our physical health as well. And I know there's all kinds of content out there about doing rage catharsis exercises, and I'm about to offer you some exercises. And I want to point out a very nuanced part of this process is that it's not about getting it out. It's not about, oh, I'm angry, I need to get this energy out of me. It's awful. It's bad. It's actually about the way that you're relating to your inner child in this moment. So if you're imagining that your inner child is in there and they're throwing a tantrum or they're just like alerting you to something that feels off, what they need is for you to turn towards them and attune to them. Often that's usually what you didn't get in those moments when you had a need and you were maybe told to stop crying or to stop pouting, go to your room. But imagine if an adult had just been there to say, hey, what do you need? I'm here with you. And their simple presence would probably have allowed you to co-regulate and be with that amount of energy, feel heard and seen, and then land back into the ventral vagal or rest and digest state of your nervous system. That's what you are doing for yourself now. You're basically reparenting this inner child while allowing them to move this energy and just being with them while they're doing it. So one of my favorite exercises is pushing against a wall. So say you're doing this exercise in real time with me. I want you to bring up a time recently that you felt really triggered. And maybe it doesn't have to be like on a scale of 10. Maybe find like a 6 right now. And just allow yourself to notice what are the sensations in your body. Maybe your heart starts racing, your head starts spinning out, and you notice your stomach clench. It can manifest in all kinds of ways for different people. So just get really clear on these sensations and then allow yourself to just hold space for them and move to a wall where you can put 2 hands against the wall. Maybe you can move your feet back a little bit. And I want you to allow yourself to just push into the wall and allow this energy through the push. And as you're doing this, get so curious about tracking what are the sensations that come next. What are the emotions that come next? This is called interoception, where you're going to get really curious about tracking your internal experience and the ways that energy moves through your body. And so you might notice like, oh, that clench just like moved into my heart space. Or, oh, I feel like heat in my hands now. And just allow yourself to track and notice that. And then as you track and notice that, just be with whatever emotion comes next. And oftentimes it is grief. So if grief comes next, maybe there's tears, maybe there's a softening, maybe there's a release. Allow yourself to just be with that inner child and say, hey, I'm here with you. I'm here for whatever you need, and you can take all the time that you need and continue to track. I will say that a lot because tracking is one of the most important parts of somatic therapy. Track and notice whatever happens next. You might notice you're settling back into your body, your chest expands. You might notice more awareness, like being able to be present with the objects in the room. And you might notice a deep breath as you're moving from the activated sympathetic state into the parasympathetic rest and digest state of your nervous system. So it's very nuanced because that energy will move and you might find more peace and calm and clarity, but the intention going into it shouldn't be, oh, I'm doing this just so that I could get it out, because that's essentially abandoning that inner child in that moment by saying, you can't be mad right now, stop, which is the original trauma to begin with. The next exercise I love is just grab a hand towel. You're going to do the similar thing, but instead of pushing into the wall, I want you to just like twist as hard as you can and then release. And twist as hard as you can and release. Doing this really slowly on your own time. And this is allowing yourself to titrate or feel the emotions incrementally. And this is the same with the wall, like push and release, push and release. So it's not like you have to like feel it all at once, because that can be really activating for our nervous systems if we have not had access to this energy for most of our lives. So allow yourself to twist into the hand towel and release, and twist into the hand towel and release, and track and notice the sensations, what emotions come next. attune to your inner child and be with yourself through every step of the process. So you're essentially just attuning to your inner child, and you're getting to repattern this attachment wound that they originally had with your parent or sibling or whoever. And you're now providing yourself, your inner child, that felt sense of safety, attunement, and secure attachment in your body, so that you now have the felt sense of that. You basically are downloading this sensation and what that feels like in your body, and start to feel safer in your relationships, because you're creating the new standard for how you want others to be treating you. Let me know if this helps in the comments, and subscribe to this channel and like this video. That would mean a lot to me. And I'm now enrolling for my course, Awakening the Wild Woman, where we will be deeply processing this energy together, our sacred rage and grief, and getting to hold each other in this process and be witnessed, so that we can fully embody our full range, learn to feel more comfortable being ourselves with other people, and feel safe and alive in our bodies. Click the link below this video to get on a call with me to see if you want to join that group, which is beginning in October.